Greetings LEGO fans! For this week's build we're going to assemble one of the most recognizable sports cars in the world with the Porsche 911. Kit number 10295 of 1,458 pieces, and this should be a great little display kit with some nice little options because you get to choose to assemble the flavor you're choosing with either the convertible Targa or the beefier turbo with its large spoiler. Either one should look pretty great on display. Now, before we get to the unboxing, if you're enjoying this video, please like, share, and or subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Now, let's get this unboxed, get this build underway, and have a closer look at the Porsche 911 Turbo. Of the two variants we have to choose from, here we have one freshly assembled Porsche 911 Turbo. While I've opted not to assemble the Targa, I am going to go into the differences a little bit later in the video. But first, let's have a closer look at its sportier counterpart. Being one of the most famous and recognizable cars from around the world, the set designer knew exactly what he had to recreate here, and he did so beautifully. Coming in its classic white paint job, with black trim throughout, Porsche written in large letters across the back, the sleek front hood with highly recognizable headlights protruding off either side, and the large turning signals in all four corners. The look of this car is unmistakable. Popping open the hood reveals, as expected for this sports car, the luggage compartment. Not much space here, but it is a tiny little sports car, so cargo capacity was not part of the design. Moving along down the left side, we come to the driver's door, which is mounted with two standard little hinges, giving a nice solid feel as you open the door. In the interior, you find some nice plush tan leather seats, which you can tip forward, giving access to the rear seats, which, as you'd expect in a tiny little sports car, is pretty cramped. Better suited to children or groceries more than adults. The driver has a nice little dashboard with 5 little gauges. Just to the right of that, he's got a shifting knob, which is mounted on a ball joint, so it has a good range of motion. Just behind that, we have the handbrake, which is mounted on a pivot joint, giving a nice linear range of motion, as you'd expect from a handbrake. And of course, we have the steering wheel, which, not surprisingly, does work. Continuing towards the back of the car, we next come to the rear wheel, which is mounted in a wheel well, which is slightly protruding at the side of the body. making the car slightly wider and improving handling in those high-speed corners. And then we come to the back end, where at the corners we have the turning lights, reverse lights, brake lights, which are sandwiching the large Porsche logo, which is just beneath where it's clearly written that this is the turbo model, which has, as standard equipment, this large spoiler jetting off the rear windshield. And opening up the rear trunk reveals, as expected, the turbocharged Porsche engine. That pretty much covers the features of the 911 Turbo, but we still have the Targa, which does have some significant differences. First, when it comes to building it, you actually use some slightly different pieces. In the last phase of the 911 Turbo instructions, you're instructed to use bags 8 and 9. But if you opt to assemble the Targa instead, you actually skip this whole stage and move on to the next phase, where you open bags 8 and 10, leaving bag 9 untouched. And when you're all done, you'll have assembled a different Porsche, this one having some different features, starting with, of course, this one being a convertible. Additionally, the rear windshield is completely different, there's no spoiler, the wheel hubs are silver instead of black, the axle on the rear wheel is shorter, meaning we don't have those extended wheel wells over the rear wheels, making the whole car just slightly narrower. There's an optional hardtop roof, which you can store in the front luggage compartment if you so choose. And in the trunk, we find an engine that's quite a bit smaller and simpler, missing all those extra turbocharged components. Finally, having opted not to build the Targa, once I completed the 911 Turbo, I'm left over with 2 license plates and the entire contents of bag number 10. Conversely, had I opted for the Targa over the Turbo, I would have been left over with different license plates and bag number 9. Now, as far as play, display, and parts to reuse, I think it's pretty clear that the main purpose of the set was to be displayed. As a play kit, this set scores pretty low. It's a little bit too large and unwilling to really roll around and play with. And having built the turbo version, the steering wheel is not very accessible, so you can't even really drive it. So, play kit, not so much. But as to display, regardless of which 911 you want to assemble, they both look stunning, and would make awesome display pieces, either as a standalone unit or as an addition to an expanding display of LEGO vehicles. And as to parts to reuse, regardless of which Porsche you assemble, you do get 1 bag left over. And I think that's pretty great. That's of course in addition to the other 9 bags, which have a nice selection of parts of their own, which among them I found 4 types of pieces that are a little more obscured. So a few nice finds in here, for those who don't plan on keeping it assembled. Which I have a feeling will not be the norm, because I have a feeling most people buy this set are looking to have a Porsche on display in their collection. The only question is, 911 Turbo, 911 Targa, or maybe you want to mod it to make something crazy and unique, like a 911 monster truck. The options are there, and the only limit is your imagination.